Brazil Conference. Welcome to the most special, crucial, and futuristic talk at Brazil Conference, the talk on AI-powered innovation. How can widely available AI tools be used to accelerate the innovation process itself, instead of just being part of the solution? And how can you start to integrate this approach in your own organizations for high impact? Those are only two questions that will be answered today. I want to introduce you to two amazing, special, and renowned speakers. Firstly, let me start with Luís Alberto Nogueira. Bebeto, as we kindly refer to him, is the founder of Segura AI. Is also a distinguished Harvard College alumnus and has made significant contributions to the Brazil Conference over 9 editions. Bebeto didn't start doing Brazil Conference yesterday, but a few years ago. He was also the CEO of Cyber Labs, leading several products and companies, including PSafe and the founding of Acad Seguros. His work has inspired many Brazilians interested in technology and entrepreneurship. I met Bebeto a few days ago, and I want to personally add that Bebeto is probably the most passionate person about innovation I have ever met. I had the honor of going for a small coffee chat with Bebeto, and I left this coffee chat speechless. Bebeto, I want to also personally say that this is your home. You have been doing Brazil Conference for lots of years, and I want you to feel that. Please, a round of applause as we will welcome Bebeto. Now, I wish to introduce you to someone who is bold, insightful, and uncompromising. Mike Pell is widely recognized as a world-class designer and industry thought leader in the fields of innovation, visualization, and data plus AI. Pell currently leads the Microsoft Garage in New York City, where he regularly disrupts the thinking, strategy, and the business models of the world's top companies and organizations. His evolution from entrepreneur to VC-backed startup veteran to corporate man for Adobe and Microsoft has given him a unique perspective on how to combine business, design, and technology to create breakthrough experiences. And I would also like to personally add that Mike is very kind and charismatic, two traits that have been evident since we first sent an email to him to invite him to come to Brazil Conference. And I want to add as well that one of his books that I have read, The Age of Smart Information, is unparalleled work. I think every person should read. And I also think that all of us, all the Brazilians, should be very proud and happy to have Mike Pell at Brazil Conference. Please, a round of applause.
Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. Thank you.
Now I'll let Luís Roberto have the floor.
Thank you, Luís. Thank you for the kind words. It's always great to be on campus and meeting the incredible freshmen that arrive each batch better than the last. So thanks for the kind words introduction. Mike, thanks so much for being here.
This is my pleasure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you all for being here today, too.
And so, Mike, before we talk about the future, I want to go back a few years to talk about the beginning of your career. There are many students here.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time.
I mean, a really long time ago.
Many students here trying to figure out what to do with their lives. Tell us a little bit of your journey and how you came to be a product engineer at some of the Silicon Valley's most important companies.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to start from the beginning. When I was young, I was an artist. And my I had this wonderful art teacher in high school who wanted me to go to RISD. So some of you know, like Rhode Island School of Design. For me, I liked science fiction and technology as well as art, so I was always curious about that. And when I got to school, I went to school to study art, but I realized I was never going to be a great artist. There were too many people who were much, much better than I was. And so for me, I went and took a programming class. And I thought, wow, maybe I can combine computers and art at the same time. So my best advice to all of you who are still in school is you do not have to do one thing. Don't let anybody tell you you have to be just one thing. You don't. I made a whole career out of just changing and doing lots of different things together. So that's the first thing I would say. I've been able to combine design and engineering throughout my entire career. And so it's a lot of fun that way, right? You don't have to be stuck doing one thing. And I would also say that I've been very curious and always not afraid to just try out new things. So that's sort of where this came from and things for you to think about if you're still studying.
Amazing, amazing. Well, you graduated college, you moved to Silicon Valley, and you started working at the early days of Silicon Valley.
Very early.
And I mean that in a great way.
Yeah.
So in the early days of Silicon Valley, and you had a chance to work with John Warnock at Adobe, where they're doing some of the most impressive graphic designs, and they're really, we're talking about AI, the foundations of putting information in computers and that being shareable throughout many different types of computers started with Adobe.
Yes.
And you were there. So, walk us through the stories of the early days of Adobe. I know, guys, Mike was the first person ever to compile a PDF file, which I wonder.
It's true. I actually hacked it together.
Yes.
Just like in an afternoon. It was very fun.
Yes, that was the P stands for Pell.
Someone asked me the question the other day, is there anything that I sort of would have liked to have told my younger self? My first thing that I would tell my younger self is do not sell your Adobe stock. But yeah, back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was impossible at that time. It's hard to believe now. It was impossible to take a file from one computer and move it to another and have it look the same, because the fonts were missing and pages were drawn the wrong way. So John Warnock, who is the founder of Adobe Systems, really brilliant 3D designer and scientist, he had invented this language with his partner Chuck Geschke called PostScript. And PostScript was inside of printers, and so it opened up this whole desktop publishing industry. But John had this crazy idea that he could solve the problem of moving documents from computer system to computer system, from a Mac to a Windows computer to a Unix computer. And his idea was so crazy. He had just acquired a startup I was working at called Emerald City, and he said, basically put us off in the corner and said, you have 2 weeks to go figure out how to move a document from computer to computer and have it look right. And so we did. We went off and we figured out what now is the beginnings of Adobe Acrobat and PDF. And we did that by just hacking things together very, very quickly. I took some Illustrator files, munged them together, went and hacked a PostScript interpreter to read that in and show it on the screen, which became the very first demo of, and that was back in 1990. Now, the funniest part of the story is Adobe Acrobat was one of the most hyped pieces of software ever in the history of the computer industry. It won awards a year before it ever came out. When it came out in 1993, it was a failure. No, really, it was a failure in the marketplace. Nobody cared, and the reason was that in 1993, this other thing happened called the World Wide Web. And we had Blinky text, and everybody loved Blinky text so much that they didn't care about Acrobat or PDF. So it took a very, very famous Silicon Valley business consultant named Jeffrey Moore, who's a very famous author, who wrote a book called Crossing the Chasm, to figure out that the right place for Acrobat and PDF was in the publishing industry, where it was so obvious, but we were focused on other things. So he actually figured that out. And now Acrobat and Adobe, are raking in billions of dollars every year from that invention.
That's really cool. And Mike, every great team has a secret sauce to it. I wonder back then, it was what, 20, 30 years ago, what would you say was the secret sauce at the team at Adobe?
Well, we were Adobe, first of all, I was employee number 491. So very, very early in the days, Adobe is a very large company now around the world. But we were a group of startup kids, and we were sort of outsiders in the Adobe culture, which was very academic. There were super smart PhDs everywhere and scientists. And we were these, you know, like kind of kids that were off in the corner, and so we liked that. And so I would also say to you, don't be afraid to just be yourselves, right? You don't have to conform to whatever the corporate culture is that you're working in. Come, you know, like Microsoft always says this, right? Come as your authentic self. And I think that that really was the secret sauce to us being successful, was not trying to do things like everybody else did them, but to do things the way that we knew that we could be successful.
Cool. And how was it with John? I mean, John Warnock was one of the great minds of the history of Silicon Valley.
Absolutely.
Which was, tell me about your greatest lesson from John.
Yeah. John Warnock, if you're not familiar with him, he's one of the founders of Adobe. He probably had more integrity than anybody I've ever met in the business world. John cared very deeply about his employees, his family, you know, the industry in general. And he was the CEO of a very successful company in Silicon Valley. And every day at lunch, I would be, you know, sitting with my teammates. He would literally come down to the cafeteria and come and sit at our table and say, I have this great idea. You have to do this. You have to do that. And so when the CEO of the company comes and sits next to you and says, I really want you to do this and do that, of course we got up and went back to our desks and started, you know, typing all this stuff in. And the manager of the program, you know, came over and said, what are you doing? We said, oh, you know, John came and sat down with us at lunch, and so we thought we would add this new feature. He said, what are you crazy? You just can't do that. And we're like, what, are you crazy? Like, the CEO just told us to do this. So there was always this argument. But John was one of those people, even though he was a brilliant scientist and he was a very good businessman, he said, you know what? If you build it, they will come, which is the worst advice ever to give anybody in the business world. It does not work that way, right? Like, because I know, like, if you build something, it doesn't mean anything. It just means you built something.
Yeah.
But he knew that if he solved this problem, it was a big enough problem for the world that it would matter. And so that's another great lesson that I learned from him, is that, and you know, like, same thing with Steve Jobs, he didn't do market research, right? He understood his customers, he understood what the market needed, he understood what the world needed, and he went off and did it. So John was very much like that, you know, not driven by data necessarily, not driven by surveys or, you know, studies, but kind of his gut instinct, right? In addition to an incredible amount of experience.
Yes, and since you mentioned, let's talk about Steve Jobs for a moment, because I know that Steve was one of Warnock's greatest mentors, right? And there are, you know, countless stories of Steve Jobs walking into Adobe's office with plenty of ideas, and then people having to hack them around. And I imagine you were one of these people.
Yeah,
So,
because John was sort of a father figure to Steve Jobs. Steve would come over, and this was when Steve had just started Next Computer. So he got kicked out of Apple and went off, formed this company called Next. And so he would come to Adobe, and, you know, of course, he wanted to see what John was up to, and John was very proud of his like team that was like working on this crazy idea of his. So Steve would come in and he showed us one of the very first Next computers that he built, and he was very excited about Acrobat, you know, and the stuff we were doing, because we were using one of his machines to show it off. So the Steve Jobs that I saw back in the early days of Silicon Valley was not the Steve Jobs that you normally hear about, the mercurial, you know, like very temperamental person. He was all smiles and very happy because he was so, you know, thrilled to be with John and they're both like showing off their own like little toys. So it was fun.
So you got to see the charismatic side of Steve Jobs.
Absolutely, and I went to many Macworlds back then, so I got to see him do many of those very famous stage presentations. I was in the audience like you are today, and so it really was something to see.
That's pretty cool. Now let's talk about Microsoft. So Microsoft is one of the world's most innovative companies, right? Now we're talking about AI, and Microsoft is a big player together with OpenAI. All of the things that are coming out in the world on AI have to do with Microsoft. But Microsoft was founded on April 4th, 1975. It's 49 years old. So we often think about Microsoft as a brand new tech company or a startup, but it's more like GE if you think about it. It's a 50-year-old company, yet it's on the forefront of world's innovation.
Sure.
What is going on in Microsoft that you're able to keep developing innovative products and be on the frontier of technologies for the past 50 years.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that you probably don't think about, but it's true. You're absolutely, you hit it like right on the head. Microsoft has always been an innovative company, always. The problem is we're always 10 years too early. So if you look back at the history of what we've done, we've invented many, many things way before they were ready to go to market. And so we have one of the best research facilities in the entire world that's actually spread out throughout the world. Great researchers, very, very innovative product teams, but we keep making things that were just too early to take to market. And the reason that we're doing so well now is about 10 years ago, we got a new CEO, Satya Nadella. He was only the third CEO of Microsoft ever in the 50 years. And Satya was a long-time Microsoft guy. He sort of knew that he needed to change the culture of Microsoft, not introduce new products or introduce new services. We had to actually go back and fix ourselves, if that makes sense. We were awful to each other back then. I've been at Microsoft for 20 years. We were very competitive with each other. We didn't play nice with others. You know, we wanted to do things that didn't involve other teams. And so knowing that, Satya said, you know what? When he took over, the very first thing he said to all of us was, I want each of you to figure out the right thing to do and go do it, which is hugely empowering, right? Yeah. So that's the beginning of this transformation into a very fast-moving, you know, and change to Microsoft, which all of you are very familiar with now. We've introduced some amazing products and services. We pivoted the company completely within the last year to AI. You know, we went from being like basically a cloud-first company in the last year. Everything throughout the entire product line is built on artificial intelligence now. Whether it's in the Office suite, it's in the security products, it's in GitHub for programmers, it's across everything. But what's happening behind the scenes is that people love coming to work. They love collaborating. And we actually changed the structure of the company to be more about helping other people. We used to compensate people based on individual excellence, you know, your own personal excellence. Now we actually have, there's a little chart that each of us has to look at where there's three, like a Venn diagram of three circles. One is me, one is my team, and one is other teams. And we have to contribute in each of those areas in order to be compensated well. And so it's not just about us anymore, it's about everyone. And that has helped to really change and to foster more creativity and more innovation and just more collaboration across the entire company.
Really cool. And Mike, this is really impressive. When we look at Microsoft, the magnitude of the shift that it turned into AI, it's quite something. Here you have, you know, many amazing entrepreneurs and leaders of great companies that have been hearing about AI every day.
Yeah.
That will hear.
By the way, I want to talk to all of you.
Are you already using Azure?
Yeah.
They're the heads of great companies. They've been hearing about AI. They will hear about AI the entire day because, you know, most of the programs about AI. And they'll probably fly home thinking about how do I adopt this in my organization. And how was it, particularly at Microsoft, when did you feel the turn of now this is the focus with AI, and how do you prioritize where to put most of the effort in order to become a successful AI company?
Got it. Well, many people recognized very early that this was going to be a transformational technology, not just a tech blip, like not just another hype cycle. Many of you are familiar with the metaverse. I've actually worked with those technologies for 25 years. I was part of the first metaverse. There was a first metaverse, actually, back in the 90s. But this time, it was so clear to so many people that artificial intelligence was not just going to, you know, be a headline and then go away. Yes, it was going to be a headline, and it was going to seep into everything we did. And so we started to gear all of the things that we do at the company to sort of utilize that to be able to either be more efficient. I sort of describe it as two parts. You can be operationally efficient with artificial intelligence, or you can create new opportunities, new forms of revenue, perhaps. And some companies who are smart do both. And so we're trying to do both. Yes, we're using it to make ourselves more efficient, but we're also using it as new opportunity to create products and services that are reliant on that. And we also, within the program that I run in New York City called The Garage, which is Microsoft's worldwide innovation program, where we sort of make it so any employee can take whatever idea they have and try to make it real. What we started doing was a program called AI-powered innovation, which is the name of this talk today, because we started using AI to help us go faster in the things that we were doing, not just in our products, but actually for ourselves in the way that we work. And so that was one thing that I was going to do a quick demo, if that's okay with you. Can I show you what we do?
Yes.
Okay.
Please do.
All right, let's see if we can make this work.
Any insider information is appreciated.
Don't sell your Adobe stock.
What about the Microsoft?
Yeah, or Microsoft. Okay, so I'm going to start this over again. I'm just going to show you. I'll just like start a new tab. Okay, I work for Microsoft, so I'm just going to type in Bing.com. You know that, Bing. Okay, sorry, Microsoft guy. So Bing is our search engine, right? Our search engine has been transformed to being really powered by artificial intelligence. So there's a little tab up here called Copilot, or you could type in copilot.microsoft.com. And so a year ago, we would bring in Microsoft's top customers to the garage. And we would take them through a series of exercises where I was trying to get what was the most important thing to them at this particular moment. Was it that they were trying to go faster? Was it that they were trying to invent some new product? Were they trying to be operationally better? Were they just not communicating? It's usually that they're not communicating. That's always the problem. It's never, I always say this, technology is never the problem. It really is never, ever the problem. It's that people don't communicate, right? They actually just don't know how to work together. So what we started doing was showing people that they can use these tools, which are free to everyone, to actually accelerate how they do things. Okay, so let's just do an example, right? I'm going to say that we're here at the conference, right? We're at the Brazil conference. We care a lot about having successful businesses, right, and institutions in Brazil, right? Okay, so let's just type something in. We're going to say, how can Brazilian companies use AI to accelerate innovation? Okay, now, there's nothing special about what I just typed in, right? And I'll try to make this a little bit bigger so you can read. So this Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, is a technology that uses artificial intelligence to not only use data that's been trained on, but use the live internet to pull information in. It has gazillions of documents. It has live news feeds. So this is what we're thinking that maybe we should start with. For the things that we can do. Implement AI in business operations. Okay, I just said that, right? Like, you just agreed with me. Invest in adoption. So this is very important. So I am friends with a very, very successful Brazilian businesswoman who said to me that many companies in Brazil are still on the fence about AI, that people are not convinced that this isn't a bad thing, right? That maybe somehow this is not going to lead to the right outcome. Like we can just keep going. We have successful businesses. This is fine. But I can tell you, you cannot stand on the sidelines for this one. Okay, you cannot. You should all, I'm going to say this, sorry, I'm going to say it out loud. Go to Bing.com. Just try this. If you've never tried ChatGPT, this is free, right? Just see what you can do with it. I'm going to show you how we accelerate innovation. Use it for your own thing. Okay, this gave me a few things. Data and governance, very good. Using AI responsibly, incredibly important. Drive innovation, right? So, I'm going to pick on this one. Use AI to create innovative products and services. Leverage AI, explore AI-driven solutions for sustainability. Incredibly important. Let's talk about that. It's like this could actually take me off to another page where it's going to talk about this. It's going to cite a study. But I'm going to say rank. I'm going to say here, I'm going to say prioritize the most impactful things we can do. Rank them, and I can just talk to this if I want to do, and tell me why. This is the important part. I'm going to say put into a table, just so it's easier for me to read. You can ask these AIs questions, just like you would ask one of your teammates or a colleague right? So this is creating a table, and this, according to, I'll stop and go back up here. So this is saying the #1 rank is invest in AI research and development, meaning figure out how your organizations can actually apply this. Implement this in court. And it actually is telling me over here on the right. So it's giving you the rationale. It's telling you why. And you might have noticed something at the bottom, which is very important. When ChatGPT came out a year ago, people kept asking, where did this information come from? Microsoft has made it very clear where things come from. We have additional things. I'm going to say, which companies in Brazil are using AI most effectively?
iFood, Nomads.
So you may ask, well, where is it pulling this information? Like how do I know that Copilot is really telling me the right thing? Well, it's showing you down here these little things. It actually showed you where the information came from. So there's nothing mysterious about this, right? It's pulling from the live internet. It's pulling from places that you can go back and check yourself, and you should. And so these may be companies that you're all familiar with, right? Or not. And I can go on to say something else. I'll just start a new topic. I'll say, how can my startup use AI? Or I'm going to say, how can my startup in Brazil use AI to promote sustainability in our products, right? So I can be very specific. Let's see, and I'll say in our, what if I say in our fashion products, right? Maybe I'm running a fashion startup. So this is something that you can all do, right? There's nothing hard about what I was doing, but it's your mindset, right? You have to tell it like you would talk to a person, the kinds of things that you really want to know. And the more specific you are with something like this, the better answers you'll get. Okay, I can even say, okay, I can say create an image, let's see if this works, create an image of a sustainable, let's see, fashionable, futuristic, no, actually I should say fashionable men's jacket. We also have the ability to generate images from inside this. We have the ability to create reports to help you with your go-to-market strategy. I mean, all these things that you normally do in your business, these tools can help to accelerate, and that's how we use it inside Microsoft. We actually try to get it to the point where it's helping us do something more quickly. And so this is sort of thinking about what this looks like. Like maybe I happen to like white jackets. I don't know. That's like kind of cool. Is this sustainable? I don't know. Maybe, maybe, maybe not.
Sustainable.
But you can see that nothing I did, right, was that difficult. And I could keep refining it, just like you would talk to one of your teammates. You could just keep refining the answers, right, until you get what you're after, and then you're off doing your next task. So that's just something I wanted to show you. This is free. This is actually Microsoft's best work. Whenever we make a new innovation, to what point you were making, it goes straight into Microsoft Copilot that's freely available, because that's how we learn. So that's how we're trying to accelerate what we do.
Really cool.
Fair enough?
Really cool, Mike.
Okay.
Mike, let's talk about competitive advantages, right? Because I think that's the second order impact of AI's impact in business. Of course, what you're showing runs on GPT 4.5 or 4. OpenAI has been incredibly successful in putting out amazing LLMs, but at the same time, you're seeing other companies in the world do amazing things. Of course, Google has its own thing, Facebook has its own thing, there's Mistral's framework, Anthropic, everywhere. So even OpenAI is having trouble in terms of keeping their competitive advantage with their LLMs, right? So AI is amazing at generating efficiency. It's also really good at destroying competitive advantages. I wonder, how do you think about product strategy in developing a new product when we're in a world where the time it takes to compile a food delivery app is more like this time it takes to order food online, right? So how do you put that into your thought process of developing new product strategies?
I use a technique. It's such a good question. Thank you for asking about this. I use a technique when companies come in or employee groups come into the garage that I call starting from the end, right? You're trying to get from A to B as fast as possible. I always say start with B. You have to visualize or envision, what does this look like when you're done? You have to go all the way to the end first and understand where you're going. In the case of competitive advantage, like yes, everybody comes up with a new idea and they get it out to market as fast as possible, but you're right, your competitor is gonna be right there, maybe even leapfrog you, and they're gonna go faster. So you have to think many, many steps ahead, visualize what that looks like, and then figure out how can I start from that vision in the future. And if you sort of gear everything you're doing towards starting from the bigger picture and not trying to do things incrementally. So I always say there is no such thing as incremental innovation, right? There is not. And I know some people, yeah, I know, right? Some people will always believe that you have to go step by step. Like we have to start here and then we'll do this and then we'll add that. Oh, we can't add that. Oh, it's okay, we'll just stay over here. No, you're never gonna get anywhere doing that. You have to figure out how to leap forward. And you have to just in your own mind and with your team, know that you can get there somehow. I know you're not gonna have the right people. You're not gonna have the right technology. You're not gonna have the right budget, whatever it is. Don't care. You have to figure out how to get to the optimal experience for your customers and for yourself. Start there, right? You have to start there and figure out what is the chasm that we have to leap over, you know, to get some competitive advantage. But if you're always trying to just sort of do things in the immediate, then you're right. Especially now in the age of AI, your competitors will leapfrog you and be off in the distance.
Absolutely. So you're saying that, think, backwards, right? You start from the customer.
Start from, not necessarily from this is another funny thing, right? People always say, well, okay, I'm a designer, or I'm a technologist. Yes, you have to be customer-centric. Yes, pay attention to data, but use your brains, right? Your customers don't know everything, right? You're super smart. Use your own instinct to figure out where you should be going, right? Your customers are not gonna tell you where to go. You can watch them and you can ask them questions and you will end up in the short term of what they need, not the future of what they actually want. And so I would say trust yourselves to sort of help you leap and do that.
Really cool, Mike. So I have two more questions. We're good on time, so I think we're good. So let's talk about, in AI, what makes you afraid? A couple of months ago, I was visiting a research center in AI in Goiânia. And after the event, we had a talk with some of the most brilliant students. And it was about the time the Oppenheimer movie came out.
Yeah.
And they were talking, what are the comparisons, right? And one of the students, he was very bothered about this discussion. He looked very smart, and he was very bothered. And his comment was, what do you mean afraid of AI? How can you be afraid of an equation? That was his mindset, which is a very exact sciences mindset, of course. But I wonder, is there anything in AI that makes you afraid?
Okay, I should ask you this question because you run a company, right, based on AI. I mean, I told you at the beginning of our conversation, I'm a big sci-fi fan, right? I've seen all the movies, but I'm also, I've seen those movies. But I'm an optimist, always. I've been in the technology industry forever, and I choose to try to see that this is gonna be a good thing for people because I don't think everybody is inherently bad, right? And they're gonna do bad things. There are certainly people who are gonna do awful things, as always, with this technology. But the majority of us are trying to do the right thing. We're introducing regulation. We're introducing oversight, using AI responsibly. And so the more people, the more tech companies that start doing this as a regular part of how they develop their own technology, then we're gonna stay on the track where we can actually pull the emergency brake or turn these things off if they get to the point where they're not behaving the way that we expect. But I think it has to do with, in order to stay optimistic, we have to keep being very diligent about using AI responsibly. Microsoft has published things for the last 6 years. We have lots of people who work on this problem, make sure that we're governing our own actions in that way, being responsible and diligent and using the right kind of oversight even within what we do. The problem comes in when people get overly confident. Okay, and this is like a very human thing. I know all of you will understand this. When something starts to work and it works enough, we get lazy and we stop paying attention. we cannot stop paying attention to this particular set of technologies. There always has to be a human in the loop, right? There always have to be people paying attention. You cannot, it's like, okay, look, we get comfortable doing something and it does it, 9 out of 9 times. We're like, okay, great. This 10th time, I don't need to pay attention. It's that 10th time that something's gonna go wrong. So as long as we all pay attention to these systems and the way that we use them, I think we'll be okay. I think it's up to all of us, though, to do our parts, right? And make sure that we understand this stuff and we know why we're using it, what it's good for, and not just sort of set it and forget it. Because when we do that, that's when the problems could potentially happen.
Yes. So speaking about problems potentially happening, there are upcoming elections.
I'm an optimist.
There are upcoming elections in the United States,
yes,
and also in Brazil. And I know this because most of the candidates are here. And we've been discussing...
Wait, are you going to announce your endorsement?
Everyone knows. So we're of course concerned about deep fakes, right, in information. So yesterday we had a panelist talking about this, how on the brink of the election day, there could be a deep fake coming out of one of the candidates or saying, I'm not running anymore, don't vote on me. So, and there's no way for people to know that that's not true, because that can be at any time. That can be 5 hours away from the polls. So how do you think about if you were the one regulating AI for the upcoming elections, what would be your main concern and main action point?
So if you think about this has been going on for a very long time in different forms, right? Artificial intelligence was not the beginning of this, and it's not going to be the end. The only way to really solve this problem is for people to stop doing this, right? And you're not going to convince everybody that they shouldn't do these things. So I've thought about this a bit, and lots of very smart people have thought about this. The only way it seems to me that we're going to stop this is at the source. So before you can act, like when you press the button to say upload, whatever thing you just did that you probably shouldn't have done, there is no way to stop that except at that moment, that exact moment when you press the upload button. So there has to be systems in place to look through what you've done to see, is this verified? All the large tech companies have announced recently that the tools that we create, that create content, will now carry a mark that shows when something has been AI generated. Yep. So that people will know very, very calmly, like in your browser, on your phone, in your mobile, like whatever it is that you're using, you'll know when content has been generated, when it's been altered, right? When it looks like it's been altered, and if it can't be verified in some way. Because the industry has gotten to the point where we have to figure this out, right? We cannot leave it to people's good graces to just do the right thing. And this is just me, right? I'm just saying that I don't think we can stop anything like this from happening except at the moment that someone chooses to do it, and then a bunch of stuff has to be scanned, verified, and figured out what to do with. But as an industry, we are finally taking some responsibility and making sure that our tools that we put out will clearly identify that things have been either generated by AI or manipulated in some way, if we can tell. And there's always an arms race, of course, like bad people, good people fixing it, bad people. But we're going to try our best. But again, this is up to all of you, right? When you see something that's not right, report it, right? Tell somebody. See something, say something, as we say in New York, right?
Yeah, so you're saying that the industry that controls the information distribution platforms will soon enough have tools to tell whether the information is AI generated or not.
Yeah, absolutely, but it won't catch everything. And that's where people come into play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Mike, I have one last question. We're talking about researchers, right? And talking to researchers is often very insightful because the things that everyone uses every day is old news for the researchers that have been working on it for the past 5 to 10 years. So when you talk to researchers, you get a glimpse into the future of what's coming next. So I wonder, as you lead Microsoft Garage and you're talking to Microsoft Innovations team and some of the best research centers in the world, what particular old news excites you?
So what comes next? So I'm an author of several books. In the most recent book I wrote, Visualizing Business, I talk a lot about what the next big thing that's about to happen, which is simulation. So we're in the age of generative AI now, where we're creating all these amazing things. Yes, it's changing the world, but simulation will equally change the world. We'll be able to do things, all of you will be able to try things out as many times as you want to see what possible outcomes could be. And so I describe in this book, believe it or not, I invented a time machine. And this time machine allows you to rewind through existing data and fast forward using forecasting and simulation to predict what could happen in the future for anything, for business information, social things, whatever it is that you want to work on. And so we can now, because of generative AI, because it's unlocked the ability for basically anybody, it's democratized this type of innovation, so we can actually unlock simulation for everyone. So that will be the next big thing that everybody will get access to play out scenarios ahead of time.
Amazing. And you're calling that 4D computing?
I call that four-dimensional, yeah. Adding the element of time to the normal 3D world and being able to manipulate time.
Amazing. And Mike, as we wrap this up, there are many students here that want to become entrepreneurs, that are setting out to build their own things. Any particular final advice for some of these students building companies and projects and all sorts of great things back in Brazil?
Yeah, get a job. No. No, I can joke about that because I've been an entrepreneur. I learned so much from starting my own company. There's nothing like it. So good luck to you. It's a lot of work.
Yep.
Right? Clearly, it's a lot of work for you. It's a lot of work for all of us. But it will be the best experience that you've ever had because you will have to learn how to do everything. And you don't, a normal job, you don't get to really do that. Just spread your wings and try out a bunch of different things. So my best advice is just keep going. But you have to know when to stop. Entrepreneurs are terrible at figuring out themselves when to stop because they've deluded themselves into thinking they can do anything. And you can if you keep going. But it's good to have great advisors around you, right, to tell you, hey, it's really not working out for whatever reason. Maybe we should think twice about this.
Amazing. Mike Pell, thanks for coming to the Brazil conference.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.